You've probably seen this. 2 million people watched a meme joking about Gandalf's staff being a pipe holder. They laughed at the absurdity. They had no idea they'd stumbled onto one of Tolkien's most profound theological statements. Because here's what will genuinely rearrange everything you thought you knew. Wizard staffs in Middle-earth contain no magic whatsoever. I know how that sounds. We've all seen the movies. Staffs shooting lightning, creating shields of light, channeling raw power. Peter Jackson gave us spectacular visual effects because he's a brilliant filmmaker solving an impossible problem. How do you show invisible divine authority on screen? But here's what Tolkien actually wrote, and it's far more extraordinary. The Astari, that's the proper name for the wizards, were Maiar. If you're unfamiliar with that term, these are essentially angels. Beings who existed before the world, who helped sing reality into existence during the Ainulindala, the music of the Ainur, the literal choir of creation. And when they came to Middle-earth around the year 1000 of the Third Age, Tolkien gave them walking sticks. Not staffs of power, not magical weapons, walking sticks. Because these divine beings accepted elderly human bodies that actually needed help walking up hills. In letter 156, Tolkien revealed something extraordinary about their mission. The Astari were forbidden, explicitly forbidden, to match Sauron's power with power. Their strength had to remain veiled, hidden. The greatest cosmic intervention in Middle-earth's history, disguised as 5 old men who got tired and needed lunch breaks. Think about the theological brilliance of that choice for a moment. Power accepting powerlessness. The divine choosing limitation. Angels agreeing to arthritis because that's what genuine service looked like. Now here's where Tolkien's vision becomes staggering. In The Fellowship of the Ring, Book 2, Chapter 5, Gandalf faces the Balrog on the bridge of Khazad-dûm. He strikes the bridge with his staff. The bridge cracks. And the staff, here's what Peter Jackson got backwards. The staff shatters. Not from the Balrog's counterattack. Not from some magical duel. It shatters because Gandalf channeled so much of his own divine nature through ordinary wood that the wood simply couldn't handle what he really was. When Gandalf declares, "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor," he's not casting a spell. He's revealing his true nature. He's an immortal spirit who existed before the sun, before the moon, before the world was properly formed. And that revelation breaks his walking stick. The staff was always just a staff, until an angel needed to remind the universe who he really was. But here's what makes this profound rather than merely clever. Gandalf keeps fighting staffless, falling into shadow with the Balrog, grappling with a demon from the dawn of time through dimensions that don't have proper geography. Because the power was never in the stick. The power was in what he chose to do with it. Later, when Gandalf the White faces Saruman at Orthanc, and this moment is extraordinary, he doesn't grab Saruman's staff, doesn't shoot magic at it, doesn't engage in a wizard duel. He simply tells him, "Your staff is broken." And it cracks, splits completely in his hand. That's not a magic trick. That's authority given by the Valar themselves, the powers of the world, being exercised. It's a cosmic dismissal. Having your credentials revoked by the universe. The staff breaking isn't the cause Saruman's fall. It's the visible sign that he's already fallen. The staff was never a weapon. It was a symbol of office, an angel's visitor passed to Middle-earth. Now here's what Tolkien refused to explain, and his refusal is itself meaningful. He never describes how wizard staffs work mechanically, never gives us rules or limitations or power sources. And that silence is deliberate, because explaining them would suggest the power comes from the object rather than the being who carries it. In The Hobbit, Gandalf's staff is introduced as exactly what it appears to be, an old man's walking stick. By The Fellowship of the Ring, people recognize it as something more, but Tolkien never, not once in thousands of pages, describes it shooting lightning or creating force fields or doing anything Hollywood assumes wizard staffs do. When Gandalf returns as Gandalf the White, he carries a new staff. White instead of grey, because there's apparently color coding in the cosmic bureaucracy. But his power upgrade didn't come from better equipment. It came from dying, having an audience with Eru Ilúvatar, God himself in Tolkien's mythology, and being sent back with expanded authority. The new staff was simply appropriate to his new role, like getting a different business card after a promotion. And this is where that viral meme accidentally stumbles onto something profound. The joke was that the staff is just a pipe holder, but the truth Tolkien embedded in his world is even stranger. The staff really is just a stick that sometimes has cosmic power channeled through it by an angel who chose to look like someone's grandfather. The most powerful beings in Middle-earth carry walking sticks, not because they're hiding magic weapons, but because they genuinely need help walking. Because accepting that limitation, that mortality, that physical frailty was part of the mission. Power choosing powerlessness as its greatest strength. There's a moment in Tolkien's vision that captures this perfectly. Gandalf falling into darkness after the bridge breaks, still fighting the Balrog. No staff, no sword eventually, no magic items, just an immortal spirit refusing to stop, remembering what he is underneath the elderly disguise. The most powerful moment in The Lord of the Rings happens with broken equipment. Divine nature revealed not through tools, but through choice. Through an angel deciding that Middle-earth is worth fighting for, even when fighting means genuinely suffering for it. Consider what Tolkien chose not to include. He could have given us magical staffs with rules and limitations, could have made them weapons that grow more powerful with use, could have created elaborate systems of how wizard equipment works. Instead, he gave us walking sticks carried by beings who existed before the concept of before. And he left the gap between what they appear to be and what they truly are as space for something more profound. Its incarnation as mythology, the divine accepting limitation not as punishment, but as the very definition of service. And the visible symbol of that service isn't a flaming sword or crown of stars. It's a stick that helps you walk when your aging knees hurt. In a legendarium filled with magical rings and seeing stones and swords that glow in the presence of evil, the greatest power walks around looking like someone's grandfather who got lost on the way to the library, carrying a stick that's just a stick until it needs to be something more, and then it breaks. Because wood cannot contain what an angel truly is. That's the beautiful truth. Tolkien embedded in what looks like world-building detail. The power was never about the tools. It was always about what we choose to do with whatever we're carrying. About who decides to keep walking even when walking is genuinely difficult. About angels accepting walking sticks. Because sometimes the greatest act of power is agreeing to need one. 2 million people laughed at a meme. They had no idea they were looking at one of the deepest theological statements in modern literature. Hidden in plain sight, like everything else Tolkien did. This is Middle-earth Unveiled,